You know, in O-Gauge, we have to make every bit of use of all the space we can when you build a layout. So one of my favorite tricks is to take all the trains that are on the tracks on the layout and take them down below and put them on hidden tracks underneath the table. But if you've got hidden tracks, how do you tell exactly where those trains are under the table? Well, I got a couple of ways. Let's show you one of them right now. The first way is to cut up the outside rail of the hidden track into blocks. And then we're going to tie those blocks to light emitting diodes, or LEDs, and show you how you can watch LEDs to determine where the train is under the table. For our demonstration purposes here, we'll take our board and assume that this car is under the table. He's going to travel along, but we want to know exactly where that car or that engine is all the way along the track. So what we'll do is, using a Dremel tool with a fiber cutoff wheel in it, we're going to cut all the way through the rail. Now, I'm using Gargrave's track here, but it can be done with Lionel track or any other track too, so long as the entire outside rail is insulated from the other one. If it's not, you'll have to take some special precautions or measures to make sure it's insulated. So let's make a few cuts right through the track. Now you may notice I took an extra cut on there because I like to make the gap extra wide, because all those little pieces that you just ground out of there with that cutting wheel can sometimes magnetically reassemble and turn on the LED and give you a false reading. So I leave a nice wide gap at each point. Let's cut a few more. So here's our cuts, and each of these cuts has created a little piece of isolated outside rail right here. That one's not connected to anything. This one's not connected to anything. That one's not connected to anything. But what will happen is, as our car comes down through here, because it has a solid steel axle and two steel wheels, as it rolls across that joint, it's going to jump whatever power is in this outside rail up through the axles and down into this rail. Now, our trains run on AC, alternating current. What we're going to do is show you how to use DC in combination with AC to light a DC or a light emitting diode, which requires DC. We've soldered a wire to each and every insulated section of track, and just for purposes of being easy to see, I've got a different color wire in each one, because you'll see how that comes into play with our nice little control panel. So here's our demonstrator control panel. And here's our, if you can see it, here's our little track line right here. There's several different LED sizes. I like to use these 5mm LEDs because they fit nicely in a 1/8 inch Masonite control panel, like what I like to use. On each of these LEDs, you will notice that there's a short leg and a long leg. The long leg is the positive leg of the LED, and that's important because LEDs work on direct current, not alternating current. LED stands for light emitting diode. That's not a bulb. It doesn't work like a bulb. It takes a very, very low current. As an example, here's an LED that we're going to apply 3 or 4 volts to, and watch what happens. It'll burn out immediately when I touch it. Boom, it's gone. It blinked just that quick. That one's no good. Throw it away. You have to have a resistor in line with the LED. Now, LEDs have a short leg and a long leg. I like to put the resistor on the long or positive leg. The reason why, we're going to solder the short leg to the wire from the track. So put the resistor on the long leg up in the control panel. To show you the difference, let's put our voltage back on, and we'll connect the positive up to here, and there. See, we have a nice, evenly burning, soft red LED. The resistor limits the current and keeps the LED from burning out. We're using 3 or 4 DC volts here. That's good for a 180 ohm quarter watt resistor. If you're using 12 volts DC, you'd have to have a 470 or a 560 ohm resistor. But regardless of what voltage you use, you only need small quarter-watt resistors like these. They're very inexpensive. A 5mm LED is, like I said, roughly equivalent to a 7/32 bit, so we'll start drilling our holes through the masonite about where we want these LEDs to mount. You want to go slowly here because the idea is to have as clean a hole as possible. There we are. Now we'll just clean the hole up a little bit and push the LED through from the back side. It may be a little rough on the back side, but if you just scrape it a little bit like this, that'll come off. Okay, once you've got it cleaned off, just insert the LED through there like that, and that's what you'll see on the front. Now if your LED doesn't fit tightly in the hole, if it's a little bit loose, and this one is, all you need to do is take some liquid super glue, some CA, just put a drop of it there. That's all. That'll hold it in. And if you do burn the LED out, you can still bang it out from the front and put a new one in. It won't do any damage to your control panel. All right, I'll mount the two yellow ones here and a red one, and I'll show you the reason for that when we're done. Then we'll start hooking this up. Well, we've got all four of our LEDs mounted, and on the back side of our little control panel, we've soldered a resistor onto the positive leg of each LED. All we need to do now is tie these resistors together on one wire, and we'll do that by just attaching it so you can see very easily here. There we go. And we'll wrap this one around here. And I've spread the insulation apart at each point here so that we can get to a bare wire. Now obviously when you're making a control panel, you would cut the legs of these LEDs shorter and the legs of the resistors shorter because you wouldn't want wires hanging all over like this. I made this long purposely so you could actually see the circuit for this demonstration. So we'll solder up these points so that each resistor is on the positive DC side wire. On the other leg of each LED, we need to have DC negative. Now, how do we get the DC negative to that LED? Well, if we got it to all of them like we did this wire, obviously they would all light, and we don't want to do that. We want each one of them to light as the wheels of the car goes down the track. So we're going to take each wire from the rail and solder that wire to that LED. Now we've got one wire from each insulated rail going directly to each successive LED. Here's the blue one going to the third one. There's the orange one going to the last one. Now once again, you wouldn't make wires this clumsy and this bad on your layout. We're just doing it here so that you can see it clearly. Let's rotate our control panel over so you can see the LEDs now. All right. Now remember we said that trains run on alternating current and LEDs do not run on alternating current. They run on direct current. Well, it's possible to tie direct current and alternating current together with no adverse effects as long as you do it the way we're showing here. We have AC common on the outside rail here. We have AC plus on the center rail here. If we take our DC transformer and we put DC common on the outside rail with the AC common, nothing will happen to the train. The train will progress down the tracks, everything will be fine. Then take the DC plus and hook that up to the LEDs. Now, no LEDs are burning because no circuit is complete. Here's the DC minus right here. It's got to jump to here, then go down this wire, and then the LED lights. And to prove that, we'll just take this little pair of trucks and put it on the track. And there's our LED. The LED is lighting because the trucks are making a connection through the steel axle from this rail, which has the DC minus, over to this rail through the axle. Then it goes down this wire and supplies the path for the LED. With that in mind, if we had a train car sitting on the track And he's now lighting up that red LED, but as we roll this train car down the track, watch what happens on our panel. Now he's on the next insulated block, and the yellow light is telling us that that insulated rail is occupied. Oh, the red one went out. Now he's on the next one. Yellow went out. Now he's reached the end of the line. So as the train progresses down the track, each successive LED will show exactly where it is on a hidden track under the layout. And that's how it works on my layout. On the control panel here, there's a red LED on each end of the siding, one at the beginning and one at the end. Then there's a yellow LED marking each siding as to whether it's occupied or not. So as a train comes in, you'll see it light the red LED, and then it will light the yellow one, and the red one will go out. If the red LEDs on both ends of the siding are out, that means the train is not following the lead. It's completely off the switch in both cases and won't block a train from going on by.